My man stressing, calling me from prison. He wanna see his kid, but his baby mama tripping. He calling, she clicking. Now she always dissing. She
All right, guys, welcome. It's Reflections with Val. Here we have Rachel Wagner as our guest today, and she is a poet, for those who don't know. And I just also wanted to have her come in because I feel like when I saw her in her performance in the event, which we were at, the Women Speak Up event, hosted by Abby Soul and Danny Ray. So when I first saw her there, first of all, her poetry just touched me. And I was like, I need to have you on my podcast because everything that you have said, like, I felt so, you know.
Israel, stop.
Sorry about that. That's her son.
It is. Yo, that's it. Okay. Sorry.
So, yeah. So as soon as we met on that event and everything. So I just want to know where your background is and where it all started. Like, where were you brought up from and everything?
Yeah, I grew up in Cranford, which is like a suburb of Elizabeth. It's right next to Roselle. So, I mean, I always liked reading and writing. That was always my favorite subject and stuff like that. But I was a little bit distracted once I hit like my teenage years, I was very distracted. Okay. But I was also good at school, luckily. So, like, even though I was distracted, I was still doing decent. And I got into college and did all, kept up with the writing. I ended up being a psych major and an English major and kept on writing, but I didn't know what I was supposed to be writing. Like, I was writing poetry when I was younger. And then when I got caught up in college, I was writing a lot of academic stuff. And then I was writing fiction and I couldn't find my footing. Like, in fiction, right. I was struggling to write that because all of my fiction was stuff that I was doing. Yeah. And I was struggling to like find backstories for my characters when the only person who would be doing this dumb ass shit was me. Yeah. But I was still scared, or I think academia made me a little bit scared to admit the things I was doing or the things I've done or been through or seen or whatever. Mm-hmm. So when I finally broke out of there, like graduated grad school and got out of there, I was still pushing for fiction, I think. And then eventually I just broke and was like, I just need to write that is me. Like, why not? Yeah. Like, and then when I started doing that, things really turned around. And it was like, I don't even know how to describe it, but it was
like another level up, like a stepping stone.
It was a big level up because suddenly, like, I didn't have to lie or make things up or say it was someone else. Like, I just say it was me. Mm-hmm. And that made a big difference. So, and that's only been like a couple years that I've been doing this type of stuff.
How old were you when you wrote your first piece?
I was like 14 probably, but I stopped for a long time because because when I was 14, I was writing poetry, I was writing diaries and stuff, but then my dad like found it and that made me stop writing like for a long time. Wow. So like from like 15 on, I wasn't really doing, that's part of like, I was lost for a while. So I picked it back up in college. Right. So there was a big gap between like 14 to like 21 or 20-ish.
That's how long you
I think I stopped writing completely. Yeah.
What was it about that your father read it that made you upset? Like,
it was about a dude that I was seeing. So I wasn't supposed to be seeing him. I was only like 13, 14 and like it was telling fictionally, but I hadn't changed the names yet. Like I made a couple of little things up in it, but for the most part it was real, and it was basically saying, I'm sneaking out to see this dude here and there. We're going here. But it was written like a novel, and obviously they knew it was me. So I got kicked out for it and everything. It was a big deal.
Really?
Yeah. It was a big deal. So
this was in Newark?
Nah, that was in Cranford. And that changed things for me a little bit. And I think that also changed or maybe affected me not wanting to say it's me. Like that negative reaction of like, you're doing what? Rah, rah, rah. My family's Catholic, German, and suburban. So it's all very much like, be quiet. Don't say nothing. Don't, make noise. Don't. Just sit down and shut up. Like,
yeah, I saw a post that you said that. Listen, like Germans, they're the coldest.
Mad cold.
They can be cold and not talk to you, right?
Word. And that's nothing. It's nothing. Okay, go. Yeah. Very cold, quiet, a little bit heartless. So I think,
which also has helped you be more expressive.
It did. Yeah. All that has helped me in the long run, but it was hard at the time because I'm a very emotional person. So it was kind of against my nature to hold it in, hold everything in all the time. And
the times that you felt like it was maxed out, you kind of just
wrote
it all.
And I feel better, and this is truer to me to say these things are happening. Like even now, like my mom doesn't like what I'm doing. Really? Yeah. Like and I kind of understand just because like the Catholic stuff or whatever. But so it would have been hard for me to do any of this radical honesty back when I was under her roof or whatever like that. So
it all was supposed to happen.
Yeah, it happened this way.
So your dad found this out and he kicked you out. Like, what did you do? What was your life like when you were out here doing everything on your own? If you don't mind sharing.
No, it's cool. I had the thing was my parents were already divorced at that point. So I was living with my mom. I was a freshman in high school. She kicked me out first, actually. And that's how I ended up at his house. So gotcha. She kicked me out. I went to his house. And then this was a few months later, by the time he kicked me out, my mom happened to be moving to my grandfather's house. And that was the last place that I could go. So we ended up together again. Like, you can't kick me out of his house. So we all were just there after that. So, but that's the thing about the coldness, the quietness. Like you could live together and not speak in my family. Like, so yeah.
That's cold, man.
Yeah. So like we were all coexisting and stuff like that. I was just working a lot. I think, by 14, I already had a job. So I was just schoolwork, home, schoolwork, boyfriend, schoolwork, Oh yeah, I was just grown.
You grew up fast.
Yeah, I was just grown by like 14. I was already just like out and about doing whatever I had to do, basically.
So it was only a matter of time before your parents are going to be like, I'm not agreeing with this.
Right. And to me, it's like, okay. Like, and that's what that post was about too. Is like, you don't want to talk to me? I won't talk to you back. Like, that's cool. Like, I can handle it. So to me, that's kind of nothing. I don't know. It affected me a little bit, but it definitely like built my, back up a little bit to be like, I'm good whether y'all fuck with me or not, because that's kind of where I'm coming from already.
Right. So now with your family being the people that they are and internalizing a lot of their issues and being cold, not really talking, did you say that helps you kind of like, you used poetry as an outlet, as a way out of all of your situations that you kept bottled up inside with your family, with everything, all the circumstances in your life?
Yeah, I mean, poetry is the opposite of holding it in. It is getting out of the room. So yeah, it's definitely a reaction to it. And I think that's part of why I am so open and honest in my poetry and saying this is me, this is what happened to me, is because it's anti holding it in, anti pretending, anti faking like everything is good or whatever, or it is out. So I think poetry is definitely reactive to that, and my style is 100% open for that reason, because it just is what I've been held back.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
younger.
It wasn't that hard to kind of like just be completely vulnerable and let go of everything and just be completely open.
Yeah.
Like, when was that decision made in your life? When you were like, I'm not holding back no more. I'm just gonna. Who cares if they know this about me?
Right. I did my first open mic not last year. I think it was the year before that. At a place in Newark, and I read a couple of little short things, and that was the first time I ever read a poem out loud in my whole life. So that was only like 2 years ago, probably like January 2 years ago. And even those, I think those were like older poems that I wasn't really like 100% on. And so maybe it was like a couple months later that the more I was writing, the more I was doing open mics and stuff like that, I think I just found my footing a little bit. I was doing more open mics, and I found that people were gravitating towards the poems that sounded more like stories than poems. So then I just started kind of leaning towards that. Like open mics or, performing shaped some of my writing for that reason. People like confessional stuff and people like stories. So when I found that, I just kind of leaned into it a little bit. And
you the more you went up there and did it and you saw the results, the more unafraid you were to display that.
Definitely. And I mean, I wasn't on Instagram. I wasn't on social media. I haven't had a profile since MySpace. So like, So like, I was very private, very keeping myself to myself for years also. And so maybe last year I made an Instagram, and maybe that's when I really busted open because I'm like, I'm doing all this stuff. I got mad content, mad stuff, but how do I get out? And I couldn't figure a way. And I'm just like, all right, fuck it. I'll just make an Instagram, and kind of just went from there. And that opened me up a little bit more too, to be like, okay, you do want people to look, and I think
you do
some leftover trying to keep it hidden or private. But definitely open mics help me because you just are out there and you don't know what it's going to be like until you're reading it, or how people are going to react or like it or not or whatever, and you start to like not care.
Right. Have you ever met anyone in these open mics that you've gone to from the moment you started stepping out that you touched and that you were like, oh, I got to continue this, I got to do this more?
Let's see. I had some people, mostly people come up to me and are like, yo, is that real? Is that a real story? And I'm like, yeah. So I think that is usually the reaction. And that is kind of motivating just because it's like, I don't say whether it's real or not before I go up there, but I guess it's kind of nice that people are surprised enough, or any comment, I'll take. It's hard to get readership, if anything, I know that. So like anybody who's saying anything is really motivation. I'm not sure that I've had a lot of people necessarily confess or off the top of my head, like say that, oh, the same thing happened to me necessarily. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, because that's a little hard.
It is, yeah, I don't think
I've heard your pieces,
right? And that's what I'm saying. Even though I'm up there saying the things, I think people still are just like, yo, that was so dope, or blah blah blah, but they don't necessarily share theirs, which is fine. I'm not asking anyone either, but I think still people don't really say it flat out like, oh, this happened to me too.
No, because it's hard to do that. It's hard to also be in that same place, that same equal vulnerability. So I know you have a couple books out. When did you write your first book?
So what was
that process like?
This was part of that trying to break out time. This was maybe, not last year, the year before. Same, I think around the open mic thing, that last January, not last one, but the one before that. Yeah. I started a blog on my WordPress site. Yeah. And it was about little dating situations or whatever. And again, I didn't know how to share it. It was just on WordPress only. I didn't have Instagram or anything like that. But I was still posting, I had a few people reading it. And then eventually I was like taking it down because nobody was reading it. I'm putting up these posts for nothing. I took the whole blog down, even though I had a bunch of posts on there. I couldn't find a way to get it out. And then a couple months go by and I'm like trying to think of a book project to work on. And I'm like, I already have one written. Basically, that blog, I could just fix it up and put it into a book. So that's all I did really, was just edit it, put it into book form and put it out like that. So that was like, I think I put it out last year in June, middle of June last year.
You have like 4 or 3 books now?
I have 2 and I have another one coming out next month.
Yes. So from last year to now, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like once I found my footing of like, I could just put stuff out and keep putting stuff out, because academia or like the publishing world is hard, because like you'll submit something, a poem or a piece or whatever, and they won't respond to you for like 6 months. And in 6 months, they're like, we love it, but no. And so that was so frustrating and slow. The process is so slow that once I realized like I could just publish my own damn book, put my own stuff up, do my own thing, and not wait on someone else's magazine, someone else's whatever, then that propelled me to finish projects.
Of course, because you weren't trying to wait for the perfect moment or the perfect time or that brand.
Or the perfect book even. Yeah. My books are not perfect 100%. Like I could work on them for another 5 years if I really cared to or had the time to, but it's better done than perfect at a certain point. And like that just motivated me to just be like, I gotta finish it. Like you gotta finish stuff and move on to the next thing. For
me, it's like I respect your drive and ambition, really, because like that's what I feel with when I heard your pieces.
Thanks.
Like it's just, I respect how open you are, because it's hard for a lot of people to be so vulnerable and expose all of those areas.
Right.
So a lot of your poetry is centered on what style, so people can understand, because they just hear that it's deep, but. Yeah, go ahead.
You want me to tell it?
Yeah, tell it to them. Like, say.
So yeah, my poems are I write them usually like in one shot, straight through. So they move fast. I read them fast, and they're kind of meant to be just kind of rolling forward. They're very like stream of consciousness. So I'm just like one thought to the next thought to the next thought. And a lot of them are just like stories based around like a certain topic. So like one of them is Pregnant in Grad School. That's one that you heard.
Yes.
And that one is just about the 9 months that I was in grad school. My last year, I was pregnant with my kid that whole time. And so the whole poem is just following those 9 months of drama, trauma, craziness, but sped through. So it's only like a page. but it's like sped through. And so that's what most of my poems are. It's like a moment, a situation or whatever, and just stream of consciousness.
Even I think I showed Joe one of your poems. I think it was Popping Pills or something.
Oh yeah, Pill Popping Animal. Yeah. Yeah, that's a wild one too.
Pill Popping Animal. I was like, okay, sis.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing, like, I don't really have any shame, and I think that came a lot also from just like very aggressively going against some of what my upbringing was, of like, be quiet, don't say nothing, act like it's not, or whatever. Whereas now I'm like, these things happen to me, like, I've really done this stuff, so like, why? And I'm sure other people have, like, why shouldn't I say, well, you know, why not? There's no real reason. I don't really have a reason to be ashamed, and especially like, you can't shame me for something I told you. You know, y'all would never know that if I didn't say it. So I don't feel bad, or anybody saying anything about me, like, hey, like, they're gonna say something no matter what. So as far as even that poem goes, yeah, that poem is about abortion, pills, ecstasy pills, you know, a bunch of pills that all happen in like a couple week period, Plan B pill. But wild shit, and that stuff is happening, like, you know, that's like real shit. So
it is real shit that needs to be talked about. And I think when it is, everybody, you have light bulbs, you have people, you have attention, you have us, because it's like, wow, you know, like, she actually has the balls to talk about this, and the other poets or other people are just timid or shy to talk about, or maybe embarrassed,
definitely,
or ashamed, because we don't want other people to know that side about us, because we think that they're gonna either put it on our reputation or not try to listen to or support our blogs or support our music because of whatever we've come through. But in actuality, it's like, it's your story.
Yeah, it's the opposite effect. You think, oh, dudes are gonna think I'm a hoe now, or dudes aren't gonna, like, I have poems that are about sex work or this or that, anything, like, you think, oh, or maybe that is part of what holds people back. Oh, people are gonna judge me, guys aren't gonna like me, or they love that shit anyway. Like, that doesn't deter anyone. And even like my books are like, a lot of them are about meeting men or dating or whatever. No dudes really are like, oh my god, I don't want to be written about, get me out of here. Like, they don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't care. And I think the radical honesty is so important. And for me, like, the pill popping animal thing or the pregnant thing, like, all of it is like, those are my experiences. Like, I own that. I don't necessarily have anything else in this world, but I do own what happened to me and what I've done and what I will do. Like, so that's all I have, and that's why I put it all out that way, because I own that. That's mine.
Yeah, that's your story.
Yeah.
That's what makes you you. And to be honest, your story is very impactful and healing towards a lot of other people. Like, because you had to be independent. Everybody heard 14, right?
Right.
So you can already imagine what she was trying to do living outside. Like, that whole year, that first year. I know you gone through so many trials and tribulations, and did you even write then?
Calling me from prison, he wanna see his kid, but his baby mama tripping. He calling, she clicking, now she always dissing. She egging all his calls and she never comes to visit. All he wants is a chance to see his little